Okay, hello, welcome back to my channel. Tom here with another one of these riding and talking videos. I am on the Royal Enfield Interceptor today. I have mainly been riding my ZZR1100, which I have lovingly christened as a Big Z. So I've been riding that mainly, and I will put some footage into this video of me riding that because it is a joy to ride. And one thing I've noticed since riding the ZZR is that I've become accustomed to the weight of it and the riding style, the sort of the forward-leaning riding style. And I'm now riding the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 for the first time in about a month, and it feels absolutely alien to me. I feel like I'm on a BMX, which probably sounds really bizarre, but it actually does. It's because it's so light, and in comparison to the ZZR, I should say, it's so light, you're so upright, you're so kind of on the controls or on the dashboard even. I kind of liken it to riding almost like a rally chopper, the old 1970s bikes. In comparison to the ZZR, it's so bizarre. When you get into somebody else's car and you drive somebody else's car and the controls are all different and you've got different clutch bite points and the steering feels weird and the ride height feels weird, or the suspension just feels either softer or harder. That's what it feels like being on this after riding the ZZR so much over the last, I don't know, month or so. It's not just the ride position, it's also the power. I'm so used to now to being on the ZZR and the sound of it and the way it controls and the way it handles and the way you can just kind of literally open up the throttle and just be gone. And the sound of it as well, that almost like, it sounds like a sort of, it sounds like a jet. If that sounds weird, I know it does, but it does. It sounds like a jet engine when you're on it. Whereas this is obviously an old thumper. Well, it's not old, it's new, but it sounds like an old thumper. Obviously this has got, its own unique characteristics and its own unique styling, and it's a fantastic machine to ride and own, but compared to the ZZR, it's completely different. I'm sure anybody else watching this who has multiple bikes will get where I'm coming from when you get off one bike and onto another, and it just feels a bit odd sometimes. It's almost like you've got to retrain yourself, on how to ride it. It's definitely getting used to the way it feels again, and the acceleration and the brakes. It doesn't take long though. It's almost like muscle memory, isn't it? When you're on a bike, you kind of get used to it, and its characteristics, and then before long you're back into it again. But yeah, I think the key thing with the Royal Enfield versus the ZZR is the weight. This literally feels like a toy compared to that. I was so surprised when I was wheeling out of the garage, because with the ZZR I basically have to sit on it and sort of wheel it out backwards while I'm sat on it with my legs and pushed against the wall because it weighs a ton. But with this, I sat on it and I started to like wheel it out backwards, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe how light this feels compared. It literally feels like a bicycle. Anyway, I feel like I'm labouring the point now, talking about the difference between this and the ZZR. So I'll change the topic. I'll change tack. One thing I do want to mention is that I do listen to It's a video podcast that I watch it on YouTube, and it's called Tuesday at Dobbs's. There's a guy called Freddie Dobbs who does like video vlogs and stuff about motorbikes, and he does a bit of a podcast. He does a video podcast about bikes, and he does a thing called Tuesday at Dobbs. Anyway, I messaged in, I emailed in, and he read out my email about this, the bike I'm on, the Royal Enfield, and also my ZZR. But also, I was chatting about a bike in my email that I owned a long time ago called the Suzuki Goose 350. And I've never actually seen one being ridden on the road since I had mine. I mean, the only one I've ever seen in person was the one that I owned. And the reason I owned it was that back in, I think it would have been about 2012. Back in about 2012, I was still using or still riding on a restricted license. It was a A2 license. I don't know what the rules are now, but it used to be that if you did it if you had an A2 license, you could only ride up to a 33 brake horsepower bike. And I wasn't really keen on getting something that was restricted. I wanted something that was like, naturally came under the 33 bhp, and according to, I think it was an MCN article I was reading at the time, MCN basically recommended this Suzuki Goose, and as it happens, randomly one came up near where I was living at the time. I was living in Gloucester at the time, and one came up in Cheltenham, which is a town not too far from Gloucester. So I went on the train, had a look at this thing, this Suzuki Goose, had a ride of it, fell in love with it, bought it, and I had it for about a year or so. It was probably about a year I had it. Did quite a bit of work to it. I was actually toying with the idea of getting it completely resprayed, like the whole bodywork, because it was looking a bit tatty up close. It wasn't too bad from afar, but up close it was a bit tatty. At that point, it was a 1992 model bike, so I think it was about 20 years old, even then. But it was such great fun. It was a proper cafe racer. You really had to lean forward on it, and the handlebars were kind of swept back. And it was stolen. And if you watched Tuesday at Dobbs's and you saw this bike mentioned, the pictures in the video are my actual bike, the one that was stolen. And I think I might have mentioned this on a previous video of mine, but the circumstances around the theft are actually a little bit weird. So it was parked up outside the flat that I was living in at the time, in a place called Salford, which is close to Manchester. And I had the bike chained up outside the flat, and I went out one morning to get on it, and it was gone. The dusty cover was like blowing around in the wind, so I was obviously a little bit gutted. Rang the police, explained to the police what had happened. They weren't really that bothered, but filed a crime report, told the insurance company and all the rest of it, and just kind of resigned to the fact that I was going to be without a bike for some time. Oh God, what's this like here? So I kind of resigned to the fact that I would be bikeless, because obviously 33 bhp, pre-restricted bikes are not really that common to find, or they weren't then anyway. So I was looking around online for another one to buy when I got my insurance money, and there was just nothing around, so I was kind of bikeless for a bit, certainly for a couple of weeks anyway. I did replace that Suzuki Goose a couple of months later with a Suzuki GS500, the world's most boring utilitarian bike, in comparison to the Goose, but it still did the job, still got around on it, and it was restricted to 33 bhp. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. The weird thing I mentioned earlier about that Suzuki Goose being stolen is I was on a bus. Obviously I had no transport anymore because the Goose had been stolen, and I was on the bus, and I remember distinctly, I had a BlackBerry at the time. I remember I was on my BlackBerry typing a message, and I just happened to look up and look out the window to my left, and lo and behold, the Suzuki Goose, my Suzuki Goose, very distinct bike, unmistakable, was leaning up against the wall down a side street. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't believe I can actually see my own bike that was stolen, like, you know, a week ago. So I got off the bus at the next stop and I walked back, and yeah, it was my bike. It was absolutely ruined. I think I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but only in passing. But whoever had nicked it had ripped out the ignition, they'd ripped out the petrol cap, the body panels on the side. Obviously they didn't care what, you know, that this bike was super rare and super collectible and just super uncommon in the UK, Japanese import. They just wanted to go for a joyride on it. So they'd ripped all the side panels off it. I can't remember if they'd ripped off all the dashboard or anything like that, but it was basically, it was unrideable. You could see where it had been like ridden through like mud and stuff and on grass, and it was completely just, it was battered. I was obviously heartbroken because I'd cared for this bike for so long and put so much time and effort and money into it and cherished it like I do with, you know, all of my bikes really. So yeah, I had to get one of my dad's mates to come and pick it up in his van, and an old lady who was just sort of pottering around in her garden near where the bike had been discovered by me, she came out and she was like, oh yeah, it's been there for a couple of days. And I just thought to myself, well, you didn't think to like ring the police or anything, or do anything. You just, I know it's not her prerogative to do that, but she was like, oh yeah, it's been there for a couple of days. I heard somebody on it. I heard a motorbike a couple of nights ago, and I came out and it was here, and it's been here since. And I was like, oh, I don't suppose you saw who it was? And she was like, oh no, I think it was some lads. Oh, I could have told you that. Why is he not going in gear? So yeah, that's the story of my Suzuki Goose. That it was mentioned in brief on the Freddie Dobbs Tuesday at Dobbs podcast. I just thought I'd fill in some gaps if you know, just in case you saw that and you're also subscribed to me. You know, the chances are extremely minimal, but yeah. So yeah, I'm not really sure what else to talk about now, to be honest. I think I've waffled quite a bit. The weather's nice. It is November, and we've got like a random nice sunny Saturday. So I just took the opportunity to take the ZZR out into the New Forest for a bit of a blast. And then when I got back, I realised that I hadn't ridden this thing for, again, about a month. So I just thought, yeah, I'll take the Royal Enfield out and give it a bit of a ride. You can't, and you shouldn't keep bikes just stood for months on end, because it's just not good for them. It's obviously the battery drains, the fuels, and the liquids, or whatever you want to call them, the fluids, all kind of sort of pool. It's just not good for them. They're designed to be ridden, so that's what you should do with them. I'm not one to like lay my bikes up over the winter. Although the Royal Enfield has developed a sort of a crust on the chrome engine casings that I've just attacked with a Brillo pad to get off. Again, because it's just been sat for about a month. Yeah, I was planning on getting some new downpipes for the Royal Enfield from a company called Tech. I've got the Tech Canon silencers on this bike at the moment. That's probably why you can hear them sounding so throaty if the microphone's picking up the engine noise. But I've got the stock ones on, the stock Royal Enfield downpipes, and Tech do sell a pair of enlarged, I think they call them, what do they call them, like a bigger bore exhaust downpipe. Apparently it gives the bike more room to sort of breathe or some garbage like that. but the where the headers attach to the engine on this bike, it is starting to show signs of like corrosion, only minor corrosion and like little like markings of rust. And I thought maybe I might treat the Royal Enfield to some tech downpipes, big bore ones. But I was reading somebody else, or I was reading a video, I was watching a video from somebody else who was talking about mods they'd done to their Interceptor, or that they'd done these, they bought some of these tech bike parts, downpipes, and they hadn't really improved anything, like not even improved like the sound of the bike or anything. So I'm a bit wary. I don't know whether to bother or not. I mean, the downpipes on this bike, as I say, they've got a few little spots of rust just at the headers and where the fins are, the cooling fins, but other than that, they're fine. So I don't know if I'm just looking at things to throw money at and waste money on. Maybe I'll take a rain check. The reason I mention this is because they've got a Black Friday sale on. Yesterday was Black Friday, and obviously all week it's just been madness with emails about different, you know, motorbike apparel and parts companies all trying to get you to buy stuff, you know, Black Friday deal, 20% off, 40% off, stuff you don't need, buy, and it's just like, yeah. So tech bike parts, I think they're down to like 197 quid for a pair, whereas they were like 220 or something at one point. So I don't know, might do. I might pull the trigger at some point in the near future, but probably not immediately. Anyway, that's probably about all I've got to say at the moment. I've not really got anything else to chat about. And if you've got this far in this video, then again, congratulations, you've got the patience of a saint. Oh, one thing I should mention is that I did try and do a video last week on the ZZR, just riding, but the weather was absolutely awful, and I got down a country lane and almost ended up in the middle of a flood. So I turned around and went home, and it's probably the best decision I ever made, because I didn't really fancy trying to get the ZZR pushed back up a hill in the rain and wind, because I'm not Geoff Capes. Don't know if that reference will actually mean anything to anybody, because I'm not sure anybody knows who Geoff Capes is these days. But who should I have said? Sam Sulek. Is it Sam Sulek? Is that his name? Sam Sulek? Anyway, he's a big, strong beast of a man. Anyway, I'm not him, basically. So right, that's the end of the video now. I'm going to stop. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, we'll go in this spot. Oh, this is going to make a fool of myself and knock me back over in the street.